Hello, everyone, and welcome to the CircuitPython Weekly for 25 February 2019. I'm Katney. I'm sponsored by Adafruit to work on CircuitPython along with a couple other people, typically in the chat. This is a meeting that we
Can you hear
have.
me?
TG Techie, can you mute your mic? Thank you. This is a meeting that we have every week where we get together
Anyone
with
there?
other developers on CircuitPython and also community members to talk about. Um, go ahead and mute for a minute. Hold on. Okay. So this is a meeting where we get together every week. We talk about what we've done over the past week, what we're going to do over the next week, and that sort of thing. This meeting is held every week on Monday at 11 a.m. Pacific time, 2 p.m. Eastern, unless there's a holiday, in which case it will get moved. But for the most part, it's on Mondays. It gives us a chance to sync up and just see what everyone's up to, and just to be able to call people out for the work they've been doing over the course of the week. We love to have everyone on this meeting, um, even if you're just lurking or if you are working on a project or any sort of simple thing like that. We want to hear about all of it. So feel free to join us anytime. We also are a podcast now. So if take a look on, I know Spotify and iTunes. If we're not on your favorite podcast service, let us know, um, and we will see what we can do. So this meeting is in 5 parts now. The first part is community news, where we'll talk about things that are going on in the community. The second part is state of CircuitPython and the libraries, where we will talk about the core code and the libraries, and discuss just quick stats and info going on there. The third part is Hug Reports. Hug Reports is a chance to call people out for doing good work. It's something we took from the Adafruit internal meeting. Too often, people are not recognized for doing good things. So we try to take the opportunity to do that each week. The fourth part is status updates, where we take a couple minutes to talk about what we've done over the past week and what we will be doing over the next week. And then the last part is in the weeds, where any kind of long form discussion can be had about any kind of topic. If you come up with any in the weeds stuff, please type it into the CircuitPython chat on Discord, and we'll get that into the notes. So a couple things. First, we have notes that go with this meeting. This meeting is recorded. We are in the audio chat on the Adafruit CircuitPython Discord, which you can join if you're listening to this later. You can join at adafru.it/discord and in the chat. And we're there all week. So if you are listening to this later and you just want to stop in and have a chat, we are around during the week as well. The notes will have timestamps. So if you are reading through the notes later and you are interested in a particular topic that was discussed, you can scan to that point in the video and give that a listen or a watch. It will be uploaded to YouTube as well, and the podcast will eventually go up as well. So with that, I'll go ahead and take a timestamp and get started. So the first thing is community news. We have 3 things this week. DigiKey and Adafruit at PyCon. We will have Circuit Playground Expresses for all, and the CircuitPython team will be running several open space sessions, as they did last year, showing how to use CircuitPython and the DigiKey Adafruit PyCon Special Edition Circuit Playground Express. We'll have extra add-ons to play with, potentiometers, NeoPixel strips, and servos. And the team will be running a CircuitPython sprint for several days to work on CircuitPython libraries and the CircuitPython core code. BYOM USB. Bring your own micro USB cables. We'll have some to borrow during the sprints and sessions, as well as some USB-C adapters, but it's a good idea to bring one too. You can check out more information about that at adafruit.com/pycon. Second, check out Nina's fantastic talk at PyCascades. Light up your life with Python and LEDs. There are 2 links, which I will pop into the chat. And last, Adafruit IO for CircuitPython is here. We are thrilled to release the CircuitPython wrapper library for communicating with Adafruit IO. And that's Adafruit CircuitPython. Adafruit IO is the name of that library. And that's what we have for community news. So next up is the state of CircuitPython and the libraries. First, we'll talk about the project overall, then we'll talk about the core, and then we'll talk about the libraries. So overall, we had 16 pull requests merged, which is great, from 9 authors. CP Forbes is an author that I don't recognize, so thank you for what I believe to be your first contribution. And 3 reviewers, Scott, myself, and Dan. We had 11 issues closed by 6 people and 11 opened by 5 people. So we are exactly even on issues, which is fine. We're working through bugs and finding more as we go, and that is how the cycle works. Overall, I want to say we are working towards getting 4.0 out the door. We hope to have in the next 2 weeks or so a release candidate, at which point it should be stable. We should have all the bugs worked out. And then at that point, we will catch anything else and hopefully move towards a 4.0 stable release. So that's the plan there. Specific to the core, we had 15 pull requests merged by 8 authors. CP Forbes was part of that, and 3 reviewers. We have 7 open pull requests right now, which feel free to take a look at any of those. Some of those are long-term pull requests, which means we have them in for discussion more than we do for expecting them to be part of 4.0. We had 7 issues closed by 3 people and 8 opened by 4 people on the core, leaving us with 146 open issues. And there's a link in the notes to the list of issues. The next thing we have is the download stats for CircuitPython. We have the 3.1.2 is our current stable release. And as always, it is a significantly higher download rate than the beta version. In terms of boards, the highest, as always, is Circuit Playground Express, followed by Trinket M0, I believe. These are pretty typical download stats in general. As for the beta, it's currently 4.0 beta 2, and it looks like the highest is Circuit Playground Express Feather M4 and the Arduino MKR 1300. Yeah. So the total stable downloads is 6,689 for the past week, and the total beta downloads is 483. What's neat is we can also look at the downloads by language. 3.1.2 does not have translations, so obviously all of them are listed under English. But it looks like German and French are the 2 behind English that are the highest number of downloads. We are looking for people to continue translation work. So if you happen to know any of these languages or a new one, feel free to let us know. There's issues on the repo on how to start contributing with translations, and all you need to do is take a look at those and then put in a PR, and we can get that merged in. We're looking for people to translate the most recently added stuff so that we can have a full set of translations for 4.0 stable when we're good to go with that. So if you are able to do translations, let us know. We're super interested in that. Beignet says in the chat, I can help with German. That's excellent. Take a look and see where that's at. There is going to be an issue open for it because it was recently worked on, and see whether or not there's anything left to translate with the German stuff. Thank you very much for that offer. So Now we'll move on to the libraries. The statistics for the libraries are incorrect. I know because I personally merged at least 4 pull requests from Maker Melissa this past week, and I was not the only one merging pull requests. So Adabot is being um, a little bit odd with what the outcome is, but at least 4 were merged with 4 authors and 4 reviewers. I added names in there just based on people that I remembered had put in PRs, but the statistics aren't quite right. So we have 11 open pull requests. Looks like at least 3 of them are not long-term PRs. So if you're interested in starting and reviewing, take a look at some of those, because some of those are PRs that do need to be reviewed and merged soon. And reviewing is a good way to get started. We have 4 closed issues by 3 people and 3 opened by 2 people, leaving us with 62 open issues. The list of issues is in the notes. So if you are interested in contributing, taking a look at the issues on the libraries is a good place to start. There are a number of good first issues in that list that if you haven't contributed before and you want to get started, sometimes it's as simple as updating a text file or something like that. And if you are not sure how to use GitHub, we do have a guide, and also we are available in the CircuitPython chat to help out with that. So don't let that stop you. We are perfectly happy to help you learn how to do that because it helps us. The rest of the stuff for the libraries are repo level issues. The full list is on the CircuitPython library tracking issue, which is on the CircuitPython repo issue list. That gets updated every Monday with the most recent stuff, and so you can take a look at that because there's definitely some good first issues in there, something as simple as renaming a file, and all of it is super helpful. And that is what we have for libraries. And that would wrap up the state of CircuitPython and the libraries. So the next section is Hug Reports. Hug Reports is a chance to call people out for doing something great. Like I said, we took this from an internal Adafruit meeting thing, but we think it's great. We like to be able to call people out for doing good stuff. I will start as an example, and we'll go in a round robin. So alphabetically, I will begin, and we'll go down the list, and then loop to the beginning and start over. Feel free to let me know if you're lurking. 2 people already have, 3 people already have, and I will skip over you in the round robins. And other than that, we will get started after I take a timestamp. All right, so I want to give a hug report to Maker Melissa for the continued work on the Featherwing library and other libraries. She has been putting in a ton of work on testing libraries, doing pull requests, making pull requests, reviewing, updating driver list, just so much, and I really appreciate it. It's super helpful to me as I am usually the one going through all that stuff, and so knowing that that's being taken care of is very excellent. I want to say thanks to Dan H for proofing my guide for me and also helping me out with screenshots. I did a guide on using Bluetooth with CircuitPython. It's a getting started guide, and Dan helped me out with that. Want to give a hug report to Scott for sprinting at PyCascades right now. He attended PyCascades this weekend and has been discussing a lot of CircuitPython with a lot of people and is doing a sprint today, and that's why he's not in the meeting. So thanks for that. And I want to say have a lovely wedding reception if you're listening to this later. And also someone else snuck in a hug report with mine, which is +1 from team at Adafruit. So have a wonderful wedding reception. That is going on next week. Scott will also not be attending the meeting next week because he will still be with family. So, and lastly, I want to say thank you to Summersoft for the continued Adabot work and fighting the good fight, which would be the fight against Travis. So with that, I will move on to Maker Melissa.
Okay, I wanted to start with giving a hug to Jerry for all the testing and bug finding and fixing. I wanted to give a hug to Summersoft for helping me with getting some of the repo level issues sorted out. And I wanted to give huge hugs to Adafruit and PT, Lady Ada, Tanut, and so Scott, I guess, for helping me with get all set up and going to PyCon in May. And I want to give a big group hug to everyone else.
All right, thanks. Okay, so there are a couple of people who aren't in the meeting whose notes I will be reading in alphabetical order as if they were here. It's magical. So first up is Sedacious, who has a hug report for Dan for helping with getting a portly hollowing build on a diet. Lady Ada for testing and breaking bitmap stuff. To Jerry, Brent, Maker Melissa, Lady Ada, and Anik Data for making it super simple to get temp humidity data posting to Adafruit IO. Both me and my mushroom farmer friend were very impressed. And next up is Summersoft, who is text only. So hug report to NNJA Nina Zakarenko for the great Python on hardware talk at PyCascades. To Tan Newt Scott for representing CircuitPython at PyCascades. To Katney and Maker Melissa for identifying and idea bouncing tooling issues and enhancements. To Jerry, Brent, Melissa, Lady Ada, and anyone I'm missing for all the Wi-Fi work, and a group hug beyond that. All right, and next up is Scott's hug reports, which are in the notes. Hug report to Katney, myself, for running the meeting, running the weekly while I'm gone. To the CircuitPythonistas for being awesome and continuing the good work. Alan, Thea, and the rest of the PyCascades conference folks. It was a lot of fun, lots of great people. And NNJA for, which is Nina again, for the excellent CircuitPython talk and conversation. That brings us to Brent.
Hello. Hug reports to Katney for helping me this morning read the docs. Really useful. Jerry for bug fixing, testing, and finding within Adafruit IO CircuitPython. I'm excited to support his wrapper for ESP AT control when it's ready. I added some support for that. Summersoft for bug finding, and Maker Melissa for work done on the ESP32 SPI.
Excellent. Thank you. Charles, you said you were lurking, but you're typing, so I will wait just a second. Ah, there it is. Group hug to all. Excellent. Thank you. All right, next up is Dan.
Okay, so I have a long list. Thanks to Maker Melissa for a tremendous amount of work on the libraries and other library infrastructure stuff. It might be a record for PRs by one person in a week. I'm not sure, but it's close. And thanks all to Summersoft in the same vein for continuing to work on all kinds of Travis and other library issues that are hard to figure out. Thanks to Katney for testing my BLE.io stuff, which found some issues and we were able to fix them last week. And for the intro guide, really clear intro guide that she's working up, which should be published shortly after review. Thanks to Brent for the CircuitPython Adafruit.io library, which sounds great. I've just been looking at it on the side, but it looks really great. Thank you to Scott for continuing to work on Display.io for PyPortal and 4.0.0 Display.io work, which has all kinds of wonderful features like terminals and fonts and all kinds of things like that. Thank you to TG Techie for doing a lot of testing work with the PyPortal. There's a lot of confusing stuff going on. We hope to have that debugged soon. And thanks also to Ur Heber. I'm not sure how to pronounce it, but who's been doing Nrf testing and also some stuff related to Display.io. And that's also very helpful because it's uncovering some bugs, maybe with the internal file system on small boards. Thanks to CP Forbes, who might have had their first PR. I'm not sure, but for doing something that was really helpful. Underscore underscore file underscore underscore, which we didn't have and was added. Thanks to Jerry, as usual, for testing all kinds of stuff and finding simple issues and nits and large issues, and now more and more submitting PRs to fix all of them. Thanks to Tasm Devil, who did a really major upgrade of the German translation phrases. There's a lot of new stuff in there, and editing on old stuff. That's really helpful. Thank you. And then repeating thanks to NNJA for that great Pi Cascades talk, which I've watched already. It was wonderful.
Excellent.
Okay.
Thanks, Dan. All right, Jerry.
Yeah, hi. So just a hug to Maker Melissa for again all the work she's been doing on just making a lot of things easier to use. The updates to the Featherwing library and the Wi-Fi manager stuff for the ESP SPI has been really helpful. And to Brent for also continuing to just make AIO come alive. So it's been a lot of fun.
All right. Thanks, Jerry. So with that, that is Hug Reports. Next up, we have Status Updates. Status Updates is a chance to talk about what you've been up to for the past week since the last meeting, and a chance to talk about what you will be doing between now and the next meeting. This is an opportunity to talk about projects you're working on, any kind of code, if you're new, anything that you are looking into, that sort of thing. We want to hear about all of it. We will do this again in a round robin where I will start and we will go down the list alphabetically. This is also an opportunity for other people to give you any kind of feedback on what you're doing. So tips and tricks, that sort of thing. So if you are caught up in something, it's an opportunity for other people to help you. Once again, if you feel like there's something that would be more fitted to a long form discussion, let us know that you have an in the weeds topic and we will get that added to the notes and then we can talk about it after status updates. So what we'll do is we'll start with me and we'll go around. When I call your name, unmute your mic, tell us a little bit about what you've been doing, take a couple minutes, and then we will continue. So I will get started. So last week, as always, Library Monday, updated the CircuitPython library tracking issue. Took a look at a couple things going on with that. Had a lot of other stuff come up, and so I didn't get to do a whole lot with that. I finished the Getting Started with BLE and CircuitPython guide. It's in moderation. Should be up soon. It's a quick guide with different demos using the Adafruit BLE or Bluefruit LE Connect application and CircuitPython to either get data from your phone or to send button presses to your board, that sort of thing. Just with quick examples, stuff that you could definitely expand into a much bigger project, but the idea is to give you some quick info for getting started. I mostly finished the VEML 7700 driver. I was attempting to test interrupt functionality and it's not working. I don't know if it's me or the driver. I'm presuming it's me. Mostly documented otherwise and nearly ready for a PR. So this week is Library Monday. I'll be starting the PyPortal main guide. I will be updating the CharliePlex guide with the Featherwing and Bonnet and deprecating the PyCon, or sorry, reading the wrong thing here, deprecating the MicroPython version. And also we're going to be doing up a guide for the CharliePlex Bonnet separately since it is a little bit different layout. I'm also going to be doing code for a Noe and Pedro project. I need to do up the fritzing objects for the VEML 7700 and the VCNL 4040 boards that I worked on, and then continue the driver work. Pretty much all that's left with that is getting documentation into them. As long as the main functionality is working, the rest of it we can sort out as we go. So the plan is to try and get those done as soon as possible and get them PR'd so we can get those tested and ready to go. And that is my status update. What have you been up to, Maker Melissa?
Okay, last week I did a lot of repo level cleanup, which means I added a lot of missing drivers and that currently have documentation. There's still some that don't have documentation, so I couldn't add those. And I organized the whole driver list alphabetically in each category.
Yes, thank you so much for that.
Oh, no problem. Let's see. I also updated some example repos. I did some more work on my learning guide, so that's coming along pretty nicely. I finished up the Ultimate GPS Featherwing. I finished up the 8x16 LED Matrix Featherwing. I regression tested all the featherwings that have been done so far to see if any problems had crept in, and I found something on the GPS one and fixed it. And I updated the RA8875 examples to work with multiple screen sizes better. This week I'm going to work on finishing up my learning guide for the RA8875. I'm going to try and add some more feather wings, starting with the Charlie Plex one. And I'm going to be doing some more moving related stuff, so my time will be a little limited.
That's totally understandable. All right, thank you. So next up I have notes from Sedacious. Last week, added support for 16-bit 565 and 555 and 8-bit grayscale BMPs to on-disk bitmap. Got a Feather M4 ESP32 and AM2315 posting data to Adafruit IO to start helping my gourmet mushroom farmer neighbor automate his grow houses. This week, humidity and temp data collection for the above, initial plans for automation, more bit depths to on-disk bitmap, and more playing around with display IO. Next up is Summersoft. All right, so last week, Adabot forced the reports to use unbuffered standard out to hopefully mitigate the 10-minute idle Travis failures. Changed Travis build to a matrix. Bundle update is now one build and reports are a separate one. Tried and couldn't duplicate the new line issue and pasting report output into Google Docs. I tried pasting in Chrome, Edge, and Firefox, and also copied from AWS in browser .txt file and the terminal. Don't have access to Mac, so that could be where the issue lies. I can still add /r to the line endings if needed. With frequency in, continued regluing work, got through the new CircuitPy config part. Much nicer way of doing things, thanks again to Dan H. Still fighting a couple compile errors. Either some other things changed or I didn't update my backup files before nuking the out-of-date branch. Started working on a fun pirate translation after C. Grover mentioned it last week. Not going to do the entire translation as others have mentioned a desire to contribute. I know it was a joke, but I think this is beneficial from an education standpoint. What child like myself wouldn't love to interact with hardware that talks like a pirate? Even if it's only talking with error messages, learning what not to do is just as important. This week, frequency in, keep pushing through compile errors. Adabot, issue list grew last week, so I'll probably start attacking some of those. Pirate translation, get a little more done on PR so others can careen it a bit. All right, next up I have Scott's notes as well. Added support for risking file corruption in favor of sharing writability of the file system. Reworked translations to make diffs smaller, but it likely needs a bit more thought. Also added script that remerges translations from Git history. Pi Cascades this weekend and sprints today, hence missing the meeting. Lots of awesome folks. Sprint doc is at, and then there's a URL in the notes. We'll be out after sprints for just over a week, have a lot of family in town, and we'll be spending time with them. Brain will be freer afterwards. Thanks everyone to continue to rock while I'm out. All right. And with that, we go to Brent.
Hello. Last week I gave a talk about contributing to open source using CircuitPython at Future Labs. They're down the street from the Adafruit HQ, and it went really well. Gave some hardware away, and hopefully we'll see them pop up in here very soon. Finalized CircuitPython for Adafruit IO. So IoT has really come to CircuitPython. We have LoRa, WAN, Wi-Fi, like all these connection transport methods, which is really cool. Released version 1.0 this morning. I'm sure there'll be 1.0.1 when Jerry has his ESP AT commands stuff finished. Finished a dual stepper guide as well. This week, library's done. It's time for a guide. I'm going to write using CircuitPython with Adafruit IO. It's going to feature the PyPortal because that's her Wi-Fi board right now, but it's going to also show support for doing the ESP32 as a coprocessor. Continued development of the CircuitPython Adafruit IO library. Like I said, Jerry's working on it. Any other examples I can think of will be added. I think I covered everything, but I'm going to go back to work I did over the summer for the normal Python library, see if that's going on. I also brought at Adafruit IO on Twitter back to life. It was kind of not working for a while, and now we're tweeting. So if you want, go follow it.
All right. Excellent. Thanks, Brent. Lurking, and I believe that takes us to Dan.
Okay. So I'm continuing. There was still some more last minor fixes having to do with the big build refactor that I did a couple of weeks ago. And now we're also trying to sort of clean the rough edges off of the 4.0 release. So for instance, we wanted to make a breaking change and rename some of the MicroPython modules that begin with the letter U to be their CPython names instead, because they're subsets of the functionality. They're strict subsets. And so we prefer to use the CPython names so that code is interchangeable, that you could run your code in CircuitPython and on regular Python without changing it. Mm-hmm. So there's a PR that was accepted for that. Somebody was trying to use some of the BLEIO classes that actually didn't work, and so I realized I needed to hide those, so that's done. There was a significant problem with the Nrf Bootloader on Windows only. And so TAC, who's our expert on that, fixed that, and I tested it, and we'll have an update procedure for those of you who have Feather 52840s or other dev boards. There's an Atom plugin which forces code, which when you write a file, it forces it to be written immediately. And it was working, but only on drives named CircuitPy. And it turns out that now a lot of people are renaming their drives. For instance, Lady Ada is doing that. And so I'm going to update that plugin so it always does an fsync whenever you write a file. And I'll rename it too, because now the name is inappropriate. So that'll be, for those of you who use Atom, that'll be helpful. I'll continue testing things in BLEIO. Probably not implement any more features before the 4.0 release candidate. And there's a lot more minor cleanup to do and issues to fix and close before then. And significantly also, there's some known crashes in the PyPortal release, and we have to figure that out. Mm-hmm. I'll be doing a lot of debugging this week. Okay, that's it.
All right. Thanks. Real quickly, I am going to jump back to C. Grover, who unlurked temporarily. Group hug today. Still working the details of my first CircuitPython class library. The class is working, just adding some controls and decorators. Working on the hardware design first really helped me develop the class UI. We'll continue working on that project, sending out PCB designs off later this week. Lots of snow shoveling planned as well. And Charles Burniford says, MIDI mouthpiece code for my Ocarina demo using MCP single port analog pressure sensor. All right, and with that, we are to Jerry.
I spent a bunch of time playing with the ESP32 stuff last week. And for a while, it looked like we were going to totally give up on the ESP AT support, but it's survived. In some form or another, we'll continue trying to work with it. Clearly, it has a lower priority and lower functionality. The preferred route will be the ESP32 SPI. It's so much better. Mm-hmm. But the main reason for supporting and continuing to work with the AT was because the one board, at least from my point of view, that works really quite well is the Argon with the built-in ESP32 board.
Mm-hmm.
It is a nice tool to have, and it can't support the SPI mode. So that was, I think, the real motivation for keeping it. It does support the ESP8266, but that's pretty limited. And well, what I'm finding that the porting I've been doing to try and get the Wi-Fi manager works great. It's almost drop in for the ESP32, but there's a little difference, just some subtle differences in the timing and in the responses that can be on the ESP266 that require some adjustments. So we'll see where that goes, and how well we can maintain the ESP8266 support. I'll keep trying. Yeah, and then again, played a lot with Brent's new AIO drivers. That's working really, really well, and it's trivial to port that over to the Wi-Fi manager for the AT control. That's really a very simple thing to do. Both Melissa and Brent did a great job making that easy. There was a bunch of Featherwing stuff that I was testing out last week. That was again a lot of fun to just play with the new libraries that are out there. And found out that in doing that, found out that the default bus support for the Singleton I2C and SPI drivers and UART weren't enabled for the particle boards. So I fixed that, and that's working nicely. So coming up is just to finish this port of the AT control. I've been trying to update the coprocessor guide, especially the AT side, and it's just as you all know, guides are guides are a pain.
Yes.
And still hoping this week to find some more time to play with BLE and Display IO. Always on the list.
Excellent. All right, and that is Hug Reports. So next up we have In the Weeds. In the Weeds is a chance to discuss more long-form discussions, any kind of thing that you think would have taken longer to discuss, or something you have a question about, that sort of thing. If you do have an In the Weeds topic, please post it exactly like Summersoft just did into the text chat while we're discussing the other things. And let us know, and that way we can just continue to move and we're not waiting a long time. So the first one in the weeds is Jerry. Do you want to go ahead and tell us about that?
Yeah, so this turned up over the weekend. One part of it in the response to something I stumbled across, and then there's also a forum post. So the new Featherwing library has a bunch of, or not so new, but has a bunch of things where it enables things like the alphanumeric display, a lot of I2C devices.
Mm-hmm.
The way it's currently written, if you use that and set it up, then when you try to set up another I2C device after that, it says the pins are busy and you can't do it. So
Okay.
I think this. Are you aware of this already?
Only peripherally and following your thread about it.
Okay. There was a comment that you might already be on it. So if you are, that's fine. I just wanted to point it out. I played around with it a little bit, and I first came up with a workaround that just involved sort of kludging together something within the library there, but it wasn't. I didn't like it much, and then I played around a little bit more. So I posted an issue to the Featherwing library. You can take a look at it,
Okay.
and I think there's a really easy workaround to make it work. But again, I need someone with a little more experience in the Python side to see if it's the right way to do it.
Okay.
And then a similar thing, there was a forum post over the week where somebody ran into the same problem in a different form in the MotorKit library.
Okay.
So I think there's an easy workaround, but again, if you want to take a look, if you have questions, let me know.
Okay. Yeah, I have not started work on it, so I will definitely.
There might actually just be as simple as putting it between a try and accept block.
Okay.
So that if you try and call it twice to reinitialize it, I mean, it's already initialized. So it doesn't really matter.
Well, when you call, you try that. But I think when you're trying to set up another device, you have to pass it the bus name.
So and you can still pass it shared.I2C bus
Well, you could, but I think you don't have to. I think if you do it the other way, you don't even need that. I think the whole shared library can just go away. The whole shared.py file. That was my hope. But again, maybe I'm wrong on that.
It's definitely worth discussing. I know that was set up when Scott originally started the library. I think the intention was to limit repeated code. However, if it's interfering with the ability to use the library with other devices, then we may need to reconsider it.
Yeah, and so again, there may be other reasons, other ramifications, but clearly, I know. The case I ran into was I wanted to read a temperature sensor and display it on an alphanumeric display. So you have to be able to they have to coexist to be useful.
Right.
So again, but like I said, there may be a totally different approach, but
Okay.
I just wanted to get it out there.
And I'm open to anything that works, really.
Okay, if you
Yeah.
could post a link to that issue in the chat and tag me, that
I'll
would
do
be
that
great.
now. Okay.
Um,
Thanks.
Yeah, for sure, and I'll take a look at it, and we can discuss it, and we can Melissa, myself, and you can discuss it.
Yep.
Um,
And just there are some boards that will not work with it, such as the like the dongle, the 10059 is, as Dan pointed, it's not a feather. And if you just try and set up, it doesn't have the pins defined, so you can't use the the default bus definitions. But
okay.
that's probably a pretty special case.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
So we'll
But
see.
at the same time, we have it on PyPI, like to be able to use it with Blinka and Raspberry Pi, so I mean, we are trying to make it so that it's usable with featherwings on other things, I think.
Yeah, they'll be okay because they do. I think they do have a default,
Yes.
set of pins. Yeah. So.
All right. Excellent. Thanks, Jerry.
Mhm.
Okay. Summersoft has a topic. The question is, move the ESP8266 AT support to the community bundle ? That is a good question. I'm not sure. It's at the moment we're not supporting it, so I guess in theory we don't want to have libraries that we're not supporting in the main bundle, since that's kind of the whole concept of the main bundle, is that we are responsible for those libraries. So I'm not sure. I think that might actually be a question to pass by internally, just to make sure, because I don't know what Lady Ada's plans are for it. Or Summersoft said in the chat, if Adafruit is to full drop ESP8266 support in the AT library, or if it just causes too much overhead, we could make a specific 8266 AT library out of it in the community bundle. Allows a vector for at least minimal use and future maintainability.
So you're suggesting leaving the support for the ESP32 in the main library, or leaving that one there and just breaking it up? Yeah, I mean, I think let's see how the 8266 goes. If it's really, we didn't spend a lot of time trying to make everything common between the two. In other words, Lady Ada and I kept tripping across problems that would happen where you get something working on the ESP8266 and it would work fine, and then when you go to the ESP32, it would almost work, and there'd be just there's a carriage return missing from the response, or a slightly different thing. So then we found ways to handle both cases, and you have to go through them sort of case by case. In fact, I'm stuck with one of those right now. The big problem is going to occur, and I haven't run into this very much. It looks like some sites are very forgiving, like Adafruit.io seems to work okay with the ESP8266 SSL connections, but other sites don't. Its SSL is pretty minimal, so that may be a bigger limitation in the long run to make it less than useful. So I'm open to either way, and I was open to dropping support for the AT library completely as it was talked about too, because it really was an experiment. It may be so. Yeah, whatever you guys want to do, it could go in the community bundle. It can, those of us who are playing with it, we already have it, so we can do what we want with it.
Okay. Like I said, I think that's something worth discussing internally just to make sure that Lady Ada doesn't have any specific plans for it. But if we're dropping support for it completely, I don't think it belongs in the main bundle. So I think I think if somebody's going to maintain it, like if someone else wants to maintain it, we can move it into the community bundle and that would be fine. Or we, do what we do with other libraries that we don't support, which is where we archive the repo, and if you can fork it and do what you want with it. But I don't know that we want to go that far. So I will bring this up in our next meeting and find out what the thought is, what the plan is.
Yeah, and I hope things like Brent just put in, a really simple little hook into his thing that allows it to coexist. It allows it to work with it. It requires very little support. So I hope things like that can maintain so that the functionality can people can take advantage of all of the other libraries that are there, like the Adafruit IO, because that's really the key thing to be able to use with it. So just as a minimum, we can keep that connection alive. Be nice.
Okay. Sounds good. All right. The last in the weeds topic we have so far is Brent. Do you want to take that away?
Yeah. This is. I feel I know the answer, but I really don't. So currently, Adafruit.io CircuitPython through requests will receive data as a dict, and that will be coming from Adafruit.io's API. And to call it, you would do something like feed name and then value. But the IO Python library takes that dict and converts it into name tuples, which is kind of weird. So it can use feed name.value. And I'm not sure if that implementation Python is a good implementation to keep using, because the API could return in different order, and if you use an ordered Python data structure like name tuples, if it returns in the wrong field, calling value could call key or something like that. So I'm curious to see if anybody is for or against.
So are there cases also that it has to be a legitimate identifier? Like, could it actually return like a string that wasn't a Python identifier? Right now, it can be any string, but if
right now calling value will bring the value field from the API response, like every time, because it's affiliated with the name as a dict.
Right, but can you make value names that are not legitimate Python identifiers?
I'm not sure.
Okay, and the other thing is that, so name tuples are immutable, and it may be convenient or not to be able to set the value.
Yeah. I was looking at that because you don't, the user is not able to modify the value that's brought in or do something to anything within the name tuple. I don't know. It's a weird implementation that the previous library has. Python, it's quite strange that I don't know if I want to bring to the new one going forward.
Yeah. I mean,
it's like a dict to name tuple.
Yeah.
Type conversion, and then it uses the fields of the API response to set each field of the name tuple.
Well, or it constructs a name tuple with all those values, right?
Right.
So can you have nested values in Adafruit.io?
Some of them are nested, but the general responses for data and feeds and groups are not nested.
Unless there's a ton of Adafruit IO code in Python, then you feel like you have to be backward compatible. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'm not sure if that's the right way to go about it either.
I think we might discuss this with the original author too, and even
Yeah,
with Lemore. So that's Summersoft has a good point. Is that it might be a
yeah,
nuisance. You need if you have a large name tuple and then you want to flip one value, increment it or something.
right. I think it'd be best if we leave it as is in that
Right.
case.
Also, using a name tuple, I think, creates a subclass, so that's more overhead than maybe we want in CircuitPython.
Mm-hmm.
So
Okay,
I think
yeah,
the current scheme sounds pretty good. It's sort of straightforward.
yeah. It's one of those cases where I have no idea the thought that went into the previous one.
We could
I don't.
also add something like we could catch get adder uh, errors and kind of emulate the old way of doing it. So, like if you try to use an attribute that's not defined, then we could look it up. But I'm not sure
Yeah,
if it's worth doing. Yeah, so I don't know enough about it to really know, but I think there are pluses and minuses, but name tuple is
mm-hmm.
more restrictive and it might be more storage overhead in CircuitPython. So
That's what
I'd
I
be
was wondering. Yeah. Okay.
It might be worth filing an issue on the CircuitPython repo for broader discussion.
Yeah, I'll make one over there.
That way you can actually put, links to actual things in there, and also it will get probably more exposure to um, more thorough ability to discuss it.
Yep, will do.
All right, sounds good. So I don't see any more in the weeds issues. So I guess we'll go ahead and wrap up. This has been the CircuitPython Weekly for 25 February 2019. Um, we are here every week, and we are in the Adafruit Discord CircuitPython chat all week. So feel free to join us there at adafru.it/discord. That is the invite link that will help you out to get joined and come chat with us. Uh, we are a podcast as well on all sorts of different podcast services. Let us know if we are missing from your favorite podcast service. And this is a video as well, and it will go up on YouTube um, as soon as it is ready to go. And with that, thanks everybody. Yeah, and have a wonderful week, and we will see you all next week.